There we go.
All right, guys. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the FreeMind podcast. We have Dan with Around the Bend Brewing Company out of Chicago, Illinois, and my co-host, Chershin, with us as well.
Hey.
Welcome to the program, Dan. And hey, thanks for taking the time today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Excellent, Dan. Well, hey, tell us a little bit about Around the Bend and kind of get us a little started on your connection into that brewery. And we'll talk about the bigger picture with District Brew Yards as well.
Yeah, sounds good. So I started the brewery 7 years ago. It's past May. We turned 7 years old. And it really, grew out of a couple different things. One, an entrepreneurial spirit, and two, a passion for beer. And that started, as it did with many brewery owners, with a homebrew kit back in college. So back in the early, to mid 90s, that's when I got my first kit and brewed a batch of completely mediocre amber ales. And the thing about it, though, was when I started giving it to friends and they tried it, they're like, wait a minute, you made this? I was like, yeah, I made that. And they're like, oh my God, that's so awesome. I didn't know you could make beer at home. And being the attention whore that I am, I decided I got to do this again. And it just spiraled out of control from there. But coming out of college, I'd always had an interest, in being an entrepreneur and thought that would be a path for me one day. But right out of school, that wasn't an option for me. And I had no capital, no, idea what I wanted to do. So I went into advertising, which was a great first career for me to have. And all the way along through that 20 years in the advertising and marketing business, I kept up with the home brewing. And there came a point back in, I think it was around 2011, when I started to take a look at what was going on in brewing, in craft beer. It had been micro brews for a while there and then bottomed out and started to climb back up. And we started calling it craft beer instead. I started taking a look at what was going on in the industry. And I said, there's something here. There's a fundamental base that's different than the bubble of the late 90s. There's a window of opportunity to get into this game, but it's not going to last forever. And so that's when I started, really in earnest, applying those skills I'd developed in my marketing career to do a market analysis, write a business plan, see if this is really even possible. Convince my wife it was a good idea. Which was always a challenge. No, she's been great and a full supporter and a big part of making this thing happen. And then went out and, got an investor team together and all locked arms and jumped back in 2015. Yeah.
Before that point, had you ever even considered that brewing, like professionally, might be in your future? Or was it always just that this was cool? I like good beer. I like to not pay for it. Know what I mean?
It's a good question. And I did actually, but in a slightly different way than what ended up happening. I'd always kind of, as I was going through and building my advertising career, I'd always kind of thought this would be a great second career, to someday when I retire, like go open a small brew pub somewhere or something like that. Sure. And it came to a point, again, around 2011 there. At the same time, I looked around at what was going on in craft beer. I was also getting a little disaffected with my, marketing career. And I was sitting having lunch with a mentor of mine at one point. And I was telling him about this idea, maybe someday, open up a little brew pub, something to do in retirement, and I was bitching about, all the stuff that was going on at work and the day job. And he looks at me, leans over the table, and he looks at me and goes, what the fuck are you waiting for? He had a way of talking. And, and it wasn't that I decided at that moment, to take the dive and open a brewery, but it was the kind of the kick in the ass that got me to do that market analysis, to really take a hard look at it and say, is this something that I think is doable and that I think is possible? Rather than waiting, another 10 or 15 years to go do a little brew pub somewhere. Maybe there's a different way to attack this and make it the retirement plan and go all in on it now.
Was it kind of like toggling between the two, but until you felt like you could absolutely make this happen realistically? Or did you just say, I'm all in, I'm checking it out?
Sort of in between. It was, for the first analysis period, was still kind of an open book, although I was leaning towards like, this would be something I'd really much rather be doing with my time, with my life, than when I'm sitting in these boardrooms with all these, assholes all the time.
Right.
But once I, started turning the numbers and started really looking at what was going on, growth trends and things like that, I was like, yeah, I think this is really doable. Now, the unfortunate thing is, had I pulled the trigger that day, it would have been great, because I would have been like an early mover in this thing. But it took time, to not only do that analysis and write the business plan, but to go and find investors. So it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't until spring of 2015 that we actually, got going, which still isn't, terribly long, but it was, again, that 4-year period. There was a lot of growth in the industry, over those 4 years. And, had you been in on the earlier end of that and got that advantage of first mover, could have been, a lot, could have been helpful. But, it takes time to do these things and do them right. You don't want to just jump in blindly to something like this, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, listen, there's plenty of people that did that and they fell right into a pot of gold. So I think a lot of it's luck. A lot of it is the right timing, and a lot of it is hard work. And I think, I guess, would it have probably been nicer for you to have been in 4 years earlier? Maybe, but who knows what the beers you would have made, or if somebody else would have, taken your idea and seen it and pushed you out, or, the opportunities come when they're supposed to come, I guess.
Hey, hindsight's always 20/20, right? So
right, for sure.
It is what it is. Yeah.
So when you were in the advertising and marketing stuff, did you ever work in the alcohol space at all, or what industries kind of were you dabbling in when that career?
I didn't know. My first account, when I was still back in Minneapolis, where I was born and raised, I worked for a firm called Campbell, Mithun, SD. And my first account I ever worked on was Kmart, back in the day when Rosie O'Donnell and Penny Marshall were our spokes duo. So way back when. So I had quite a bit of retail experience. I got recruited to come to Chicago to work for Burnett, kind of a luminary firm in the business. And first worked on service merchandise. If you remember, I don't know if you guys ever had those out in your area, or, remember that antiquated business model. And the Carpet and Rug Association, which is a consortium of rug manufacturers coming together to promote the lifestyle of carpet. So it was bizarre.
I'd like to dig more into the lifestyle of carpet. That sounds
exactly
very exotic.
Both of those accounts melted down within 3 months of my arrival in Chicago. Service merchandise, which was a concept based on having one item of everything on a showroom, and you'd go around and, like, if you wanted it, you'd write it down on a thing, and then you'd give it to somebody, and it would come out on a box on a conveyor belt for you. And, like, it started I don't even know when it started, the 60s or the 70s, and by the 90s, it was dying and died just as I got there. And then the carpet and rug thing, one of the 7 carpet and rug manufacturers bought like 3 of the others and was like, why am I promoting carpet when I can just promote my brands? And so that went away. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to be out of a job. And I just moved here. But Burnett was great. And I got a chance to work in the new business department there, which I'd always heard it would be a good idea, to work on a pitch. Good exposure to, all the top brass in the agency and all that jazz. And so I said, I'll do it for a little while. And I ended up doing it for a couple of years. 3 years, I think it was, I spent in new biz. And what's great about that is it was like, being in ad school, everything you do in a 6 to 9 month period on a going piece of business, you're doing in 3 to 6 weeks. You have to learn a new industry, get up to speed, become expert in it, develop an idea, pitch that to the client, convince them that you have the resources, capabilities, talent, and ideas to hire, your agency to be their partner. And then you do it again, 3 to 6 weeks later on a new piece of business, and you keep doing that. So it was really great experience. After that, one of the accounts we pitched and won over my tenure there was the U.S. Army. So it was $1 billion account for us over a 3-year contract. And I went and worked on that for a while, leading all the special missions, including the Green Berets and things like that, doing all the recruiting efforts for those individualized missions. And man, met some of the most amazing people, the folks that we interacted with, the green suiters, as we called them, instead of the DOD civilian people, the green suiters, and all the frontline folks, NCOs and officers we dealt with, and the enlistees were just some of the most amazing people. It's really cool experiences. Then I
Did
left
you get to work on, oh, I'm sorry. Did you get to work on the pitch and then also the campaign, or was it just like you got to meet all these people so that you could organize how the pitch was going to look? And then you passed it off to the people that would maintain the account, or were you like
yes,
once
yes,
you got it,
and
yes,
yeah. Yes and yes. I worked on the pitch when I was in New Biz. We won it. It was grueling. The last 48 hours, I think I got 2.5, 3 hours of sleep, and I literally passed out in the airport bar at Reagan National. On our way back to Chicago, I was like mid-sentence with a beer in my hand. They tell me later, they told me the story, and I was like mid-sentence, and I just went, blah, 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 and I fell asleep. So it was grueling, but we won it. And then I kept on in the New Biz team for another, 9 months, a year. And then the head of the Army account came back to me and said, hey, we've been so busy standing up the main mission. They called the recruiting goals the mission. And we've got all these special missions, like I said, Green Berets, but the JAG Corps, the lawyers, the Army chaplaincy, the Army band. There's a separate recruiting goal or mission for each of these. We need to, pay some more attention to these folks. I'd like you to come in and lead the efforts for that. So got to do that as well. So that was cool. After that, though, I had an opportunity, come my way that I wasn't looking for, that allowed me to go client side. I was offered the opportunity to go lead the advertising department for Discover Card. So at the time, the fourth largest credit card issuer in the country, $4 trillion worth of assets under management throughout any given point throughout the year. And that was fascinating because you're this a huge financial organization with this massive campus, and yet you're getting outspent 8-1 by Visa and MasterCard, So how do you attack that problem, right? And how do you convince people, to use your products more? And that was a great opportunity. But there was a lot, I'm going to get into the whole thing, so it would take up the whole podcast, but there were a lot of internal, political machinations that went on there. And it led me to a decision to step away for a little bit and go and do something I'd always wanted to do, which was travel extensively in Europe. And so I quit Discover Card, bought a Eurail pass, and left for 3 months to go clear my head and kind of see what that part of the world had to offer. And that was also, in hindsight, a bit of the beer journey too, because, spending time in, Germany, I went to the Oktoberfest for the first time, Munich and, Southern Germany, Bavaria, Garmisch-Partenkirchen, and getting over to Berlin, and then doing Belgium. Just exposure to so much great beer. That was amazing. And then I came back and did a job search and ended up as senior director of all things marketing services, including advertising for US Cellular, which is one of the 6 largest wireless carriers at the time.
Oh, wow. So when you transitioned, coming back from that Eurail pass, did you transition? How much time passed from there to? Were you already homebrewing at that point?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I started in '95 back in college, and so when I went to Europe, that was 2006. So I was over a decade into the homebrew thing at that point.
Did you find, has beer kind of always just been part of that journey, though? Like, you know what I mean? Like when you talked about you were doing it in college, and then the beer journey as far as going to Europe, and was that part of the focus? Like, has beer kind of always just been, maybe not professionally entwined, but it's part of your life as far as something you've been interested in, not just drinking one of the macro bigger things? Or was homebrewing just like, I'm interested in this process, or were you interested in better beer?
Oh, definitely the latter. Yeah, I was always that guy who would, we'd go out on the weekends to the bars in Chicago with my buddies, and they're drinking 12 Coors Lights, and I'm gonna have 4 Fat Tires, right?
Yeah.
And we'll get to the same place, but
it's true.
Less liquid going in.
Yeah.
No, I was always it's, and you know what it comes down to me, it's flavor, and that reaches back to another passion of mine, which is cooking. And I started that even earlier, back in junior high school. And again, the ability to be able to make something and share that something of flavor with my family was a big draw and a big hook getting into cooking. And brewing beer is not that much different from cooking, especially on that small scale. You're stirring the mash and getting it ready, and you're stirring the boil and adding in the hops, and the hot side process, you're cooking, right?
And then you ferment from like watching them. You're getting that joy from watching them take the sip or take that first bite, right?
That's exactly it. It is a bit of that, like I said, attention whore, thing, previously, but it's more than that. It's an enjoyment of sharing your joy with other people, and, being a people pleaser and trying to, invite people into your world to give them joy. And that really comes out today in what we do, both when I'm sending beers out to market to have on the shelf at a grocery store or liquor store, or when we're inviting people into brew yards where our tap room is, and seeing that joy, people's face light up when they take that first sip of Vera or something, and they're like, oh my God, I've never had a beer like this. So great. I love that. I love that reaction. I love seeing it. I'm addicted to it.
When you transition from homebrewing to that realization and determination that you're going to make this a business, where were you more in the solo entrepreneur path, or did you have a really big support system that kind of helped push you along as well for those, the trials and tribulations of that process of, poking holes in your project and figuring out what's going to work, what's not going to work, and keeping your confidence moving forward?
I would say it's been more on the solo side. There have been individuals along the way that provided a lot of help. We started off contract brewing, and one of the brothers who owned the brewery where we contract brewed to start, he was a really big help in the early days when I was getting the business plan together. This guy named Jesse Evans, and I met him through moving around in the beer community and trying to get to know as many people as I could as I was putting this plan together, right? Networking as best I could. And he really was an open book. And it's like, my brother and I did this out in California. Now we're back here in Chicago, where we're from, and we're doing this other thing here. And so I've been through it a couple of times, and really, really helped me a lot in that way. The mentor who I mentioned previously, who gave me a little nudge, was always there. To bounce ideas off and things like that. But, other than that, and having, my wife here, and obviously using her constantly as a sounding board, it was more of the solo thing. And I'm going to figure this out.
Now, for you and your wife, is she ingrained in the business in that sense, or is she kind of that outside opinion, that outside perspective for you?
No, she is definitely. She's done everything from, work the bottling line when we used to be in bottles, to she takes care of, our QuickBooks, running the books, for us, kind of free me up to do more of the product development and marketing work. Our two boys are involved too. They stir the mash when I do, pilot batches at home still. Right. And they'll come down. In fact, we're going to be going down to the brewery later today, and they're all excited about that. So it's a real family owned and operated brewery for sure.
Excellent.
When you were talking, Dan, and when we look at some of the names of some of your beers, and I like to bring this back to music because it's one of my favorite things. I noticed some of the names of some of your beers could be interpreted as some Fish lyrics or tunes.
Whatever do you mean?
Do you find that do you have a passion for music as well? Is that part of what drives? I mean, because beer and a lot of the breweries that we talk to and a lot of the people that have come from it, it's about people, it's about sharing. And you mentioned the food and and people pleasing, is music part of this as well? I mean, it always was for me, and I feel it is for other people. Is that part of where?
Absolutely. The music in general, the jam band community specifically, has definitely informed a lot of this. I saw my first Fish show back spring of '91 tour at First Avenue, Minneapolis.
Yes. A
little club of less than, I don't know what a seats, 20, 2,000, 3,000 people. Back when they used to have an opening act. Aquarium Rescue Unit opened for him that night. And, been to so many shows over the years, and you get ingrained in the lot scene. And, You know, I think I mentioned Fat Tire earlier. That was the thing in the lots back then, man. Bombers of Fat Tire. That's where I first encountered, you know, that beer. And it was one more of those steps along the way of what's going on in craft beer, man. Because again, back then in Chicago, or even, you know, reaching back to Minneapolis days, you know, we were behind the times, right? It was macro all day long. But some of these, you know, beers like, you know, New Belgium started sneaking in, you know, from Colorado, and
Samuel Smith was mine. That oatmeal stout, Samuel Smith. That was the one that I always that I'd be like, I can't find this at home, and I you know, there was always somebody with a cooler of it.
Yeah, but more than that, it's kind of it's the openness to explore, right? And that's even where the name Around the Bend comes from, right? This notion that we take, you know, classic styles and imbue them with an experimental edge. If you keep pushing boundaries, trying new things, you never know what's around the bend, right? That sense of exploration, I think, comes a lot, if not almost entirely, from, you know, improvisational music. Where is this going to go? It's new every time, and then it's gone, and then you're on to the next. And just that spirit of openness and generosity you find in the community as well, in the lot scene, and all that definitely infuses the attitude of the brews that we're making. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I like that a lot. It's very, you know, just to like for missions of businesses and stuff, like I know Churchin's obviously in that same boat too. And then for this, like in FreeMind, that was the name of our business, that came from, you know, what it was to not stay inside of a box, not stay siloed, not stay, just constantly be open to experiences and open to opportunities and open to the ways of thinking. So that's awesome to that's kind of where you guys going with the mission. Along the side of that mission and that theme, let's talk a little bit about the package design of your cans, because I mean, if anything else, like that opportunity before they even get to try your liquid, you guys pop off the shelf with your branding and your packaging. So kind of talk a little bit maybe about your designer, how you guys met, and kind of where you guys came out with some of the concepts and maybe some of your favorites so far, you know?
Sure. So it's been kind of a two-person effort. The original designer of our logo work and the initial labels was a guy named Otis Gibson, who I worked with on the Army account at Burnett. We talked about Army before. In fact, he designed the logo that the U.S. Army is still using to this day. So he's a heavy hitter in the design world. And so he, you know, kind of gave me some friend prices to get our initial branding, architecture and kit developed. And like I said, the first few labels, but it became clear to me, you know, pretty early on that I wasn't going to be able to afford him long-term, especially as we started churning through more and more beers, needed more and more labels. So once we had sort of the sandbox that we were going to play in, set, another colleague of mine from the last agency I worked at, his name's Corey, and he is still with me to this day, doing our design work. So he kind of picked up where Otis left off on that label design, but he's pushed it forward and done some things to, over the years, you know, modernize and change and streamline in a couple of different ways. He also did the redesign on our website that we executed last year. So he's been a great partner with me over these last few years. And I really owe, you know, a lot of that to him. Obviously, I had a vision in my mind of where I wanted to take this brand, visually speaking. You know, just given, you know, all the work, you know, that I had done previously prior to brewing and my marketing career, and I kind of knew what was needed and required in that sense. I think that's been helpful for us. But I'm by no means a designer, so these two guys have really knocked it out of the park for me.
Yeah, the cans pop, man. They it's refreshing and unique to find a brewery that you know, of your size that has done such an incredible job with their branding in particular. Finding somewhere that you know that's an Around the Bend can. You know, they don't all look exactly the same, but if you put them on a shelf next to each other, and this is always, you know, now bringing some of my business, when you start looking at stuff on the shelf, you want to see that like branding effect. You want to see almost like they call it billboarding. And you absolutely get that from here. So you know, that marketing and the connections clearly that you made, but that marketing background has absolutely helped for sure. To show that. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the district brewery yard structure. So one of the things is, I think that you guys have some wholesale distribution in the Chicagoland area and other areas of the Illinois. So you work in the wholesale part of your retail business. But as far as your on-site business, you guys have a very unique structure in that you're not a solo kind of brand inside of a house. So talk a little bit about the dynamics of that. What interested you about that, and kind of how that's going, and kind of some things there.
Yeah, absolutely. So District Brew Yards is completely unique. To our knowledge, we are a one of a kind. And what we are is we're a consortium of 4 different breweries that have come together to develop not only a shared brewing facility, but an on-site shared beer hall and retail shop, as well as, full food service. But the most unique thing about it is this shared beer hall is all pour your own technology, right? So you walk in the door and we give you a card, a Pour My Beer card that's linked up to your credit card, debit card, whatever. And you come up into the beer hall, and each of the 4 breweries has their own wall with 10 tap handles each. So there's 40 beers in the facility. You can go up to any one of those 40 handles, drop your card in the slot, pour yourself an ounce, 2 ounces, 16 ounces of any one of those 40 beers. And it'll just keep track for you on the card. Pay by the ounce. Use that card to go over to Lily's Q, which runs our kitchen in-house. World champions of barbecue. Literally, they've won the world championship of barbecue in the pork shoulder category twice, as well as killer fried chicken. And then on your way out the door, like I said, we've got an 8-door cooler set where every beer you just tried in the beer hall, every beer that's made there on site at Brew Yards, is available in 4-packs to go as well. So really unique area. Big, huge beer hall, as I said, and a large outdoor beer garden as well, where we welcome the dogs.
Didn't even make it to Ganesh, and you guys were in the same building there. So that's a small.
Yeah, Charlie is really growing that empire. His barbecue sauces are getting out all over the place too. He's got it going on, and so he's also coming with us with Lily's Q up to the 2nd District Brew Yards. And that's actually, I alluded to earlier today, the family is going somewhere to the brewery today. Well, we're going to the 2nd Brew Yards, which is under construction right now, to check out the progress. The original Brew Yards is at Ashland and Hubbard in the Westtown neighborhood, right in Chicago proper, right near downtown there. Not too far from the United Center where the Bulls and the Blackhawks play. The 2nd location of Brew Yards, which is the same concept, multiple breweries, pour your own, Charlie's Food at Lily's Q, is going to be up in the northern suburbs of Chicago, a town called Wheeling, Illinois. So we're really excited. That should be opening right around post Labor Day.
Are you finding that at these locations, do you feel like you're generating some kind of interest just because of the uniqueness of this? I mean, it's not a typical brewery setup. It's not a typical brew pub. It's not even a typical restaurant. So do you find that you're generating some interest in bringing in some new consumers, like based solely on this new template of style? And if do you think that it's? I'm obviously you're going to say you like it, but I mean, do you find that it works? Without getting into too much of the minutia and the details, but do you find that it's a cool or kind of a refreshing new way to look at setting up brew pubs?
I absolutely do, and I know for a fact we've generated new fans for our brewery as a result of this first location. What I think people like the most about it is it leverages off of kind of one of those core deep insights about the craft beer category overall, which is that craft beer drinkers are very promiscuous, right? They always want to know what's new, what's next, even from their favorite breweries, right? But, there's a new brewery I haven't tried. Let's go check them out, or let's pull that off the shelf and give that a try. This just allows someone to do that in spades within one location, right? Yeah. It's like having your own, brewery crawl, but you never have to leave these 4 walls, right? You don't have to get in a car and drive anywhere. So it definitely has had a great reception from people. They like the fact that they can go to, 4 different breweries and try a little bit of, something from each of them. And we've really strived hard to make sure we have partners in there who, not that we're all doing way super unique things from each other, but we each have a point of view on craft beer and what we're trying to do. Right. And ours is, like I said, that experimental take. on things where, one of our other players is Casa Humilde, a pair of brothers from the Hermosa neighborhood of Mexican heritage. And they're very focused on, that style of brewing. So we all kind of complement each other, and I think it makes for a great consumer experience.
Do you ever find that you guys are doing collabs together, or is that not quite, you're not there yet?
We initially, when we started this, thought we'd be doing that all the time. The way it's just kind of turned out in practice is less like, we're going to do this collab beer and brew it together and put it out in this package, and more like just every day, all the time, conversationally collaborating and helping out. And, I've faced that problem before. Let me tell you how I handled it. Or, you're stuck on this thing over here. Maybe, I haven't faced that, but I've got an idea. Maybe try this, and come back and say, that idea worked great. Thanks for the help. So it's less about like traditional craft beer collabs and putting out product, and more about just everyday collaboration. That makes sense?
From a buying power for raw materials and things like that, there's an advantage to everybody collaborating together to time batches out and between the yeast and hops and things like that. So,
yeah, from a business perspective, that was absolutely one of the things that attracted me to this model as well. Kind of back end perspective. When you think about it, combining our orders for grains, even if we can get 2 or 3 cents per pound difference over the course of a year, the thousands of pounds of grain, that you utilize across the 4 different breweries, that adds up to real money, right? Or, looking at, sharing yeast pitches, right? Does anybody have something going with Cal Ale right now that I could, regenerate off of? That saves a yeast pitch right there. Those are definitely, helpful things. And then when the pandemic hit, it was huge to have had a contract in place already for our blank cans. So we just get blank cans into the brewery, and then we have an inline labeler. So the labels are just on a spool, and they come through after they've been filled and zip on a label. And so we can buy in, lots of these blank cans at the time. And so we had one of the, the team members who's our chief operating officer, he had the foresight even before the pandemic to get into a position with a contract on those blank cans, which a lot of people our size never had access to. So when the can crunch came, when the pandemic hit and everyone's scrambling for aluminum, we had a little, some issues here or there, maybe, low on stock, maybe, a couple weeks out, but a lot of people were just like, we can't even get cans for months now. We're dead in the water. So, obviously something like that paid huge dividends for us.
And the setup is like what the true spirit of craft beer, like at least what we all wanted it to be about, right? Like sharing and like building each other up, and what a cool kind of format or template to kind of embrace that, having each other all in the same place, buying together. And I'm sure that there's places that may have done that, or smaller breweries that have done that idea, but to do it all in one place, and it's just such a unique and in the spirit of craft beer idea. I like it. Do you find that because it's so unique, there had to be some challenges, the things that like you didn't necessarily foresee, that you're like, God, man, I wish that I had just done this differently, or I wish that if I had seen this, some of those challenges, and maybe it's around the pandemic, maybe it wasn't. But I mean, is there some challenges that you had that coming up through there that you felt like, man, I wish I had done this differently?
I don't know if it's anything that I wish I had done differently per se. There are definitely things that were surprising, like we thought, we were going to open this thing up, and, on my 10 tap handles, I was going to have, a grisette and a saison and, like all these obscure, styles. And we're really going to be able to explore and experiment and do different things. And, what the best seller week to week is our hazy IPA. And now sours, I've been very pleasantly surprised. We've gotten into sours in kind of a big way lately, and they really have come on in the market here in Chicagoland in general, and do very well for us at Breward as well. But no, there's nothing that I would point to necessarily say I would have done completely differently. Just things that have played out a little different than I might have expected.
That's awesome. I wish I could say those things about some of my life decisions. But.
Yeah, don't we all?
So I'm
sure there's something that I've just suppressed, but
looking into the future, Dan, we used to be able to say, oh yeah, let's think 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. And I think the past couple of years have taught us that, you never know. So let's look at, 24 months down the road, kind of, what do you think? And nothing holding you to it, but obviously you have the next satellite coming up with district brew yards, kind of other things that, kind of non-surprises or anything like that, or even maybe things that are being considered as far as that, as the industry continues to evolve and your business continues to evolve with it.
Yeah, we definitely would like to expand our geographic footprint for our distribution business. So that's something we're actively pursuing right now. Get our beer out to more people in different places. One of the things that I'm really focused on right now is just cutting through the clutter and getting more people, to even here in Chicagoland to really sit up and take notice of us. We go to festivals all the time, and we'll get about half, if we have Vera, which is our best-selling beer. It's a pistachio cream ale, very unique beer. Well, half the people will come up to me and be like, "Oh my God, you have Vera here. That's great. It's my favorite beer. Thank you." And about the other half of people will come up to me and go, "What is this? I've never heard of." And I'm like, we're 7 years in. You've never heard of this? How is this possible? But then I think, wow, 8 million people around here with more breweries than anywhere else in America. We just added our 300th brewery in the Chicagoland area, I think a couple months ago. So there's a lot of competition. And so we really need to, continue to just get out there and show face and make sure, everybody knows, what great beers we have in our home market here as well. Eventually, I don't know if this is in the 12-month horizon, the 24-month horizon, or the 60-month horizon, but we would like to, in addition to the brew yards locations, which I'm hoping we go beyond 2, we'll see. But I would like to do something that's just ATV branded, have our own little, skunk works where we put a little 5-barrel brew house somewhere, and really do push those boundaries and do, some more of that weird experimentation where there's less pressure, to make sure everything's a hit and it's all selling through super fast and things like that. You never know where that next breakthrough beer is going to come through, right? The pistachio cream ale came from a night of brainstorming with my head brewer, where we came up with all these different ideas and we brought it back to my head of sales, Lindsay, and we're like, we're going to do, these 12 seasonals next year. And she's like, you're an idiot. You're not going to do 12 seasonals. You can't do that much in the market. But this pistachio cream ale, that's the first one we're doing. And she was right. And it's been a hit ever since. So we need to do more of that.
Excellent.
So do you think that new location is going to be something where you can do, some kind of like crazier ideas? Like I've been sitting on this and I can't wait to try it. Or do you think it's just something where, you're going to kind of just keep pushing innovation and see if something comes out of it? Or is this something you're like, I really have been sitting on this and I can't wait to try it, and this is going to be the place for it?
Yeah. And I think, whether we do our own branded location or not, the more opportunities that I have, the more I can sneak one in like that. Right. So we got 10 handles at the downtown location. We're going to have 8 handles up in Wheeling. If we did our own little thing and, put in 6, 12, who knows how many handles, each one of those then presents an opportunity to take one of those handles and do something a little more bizarre. And if it doesn't hit, fine, no harm, no foul. Because we've got all the rest of this volume, moving through and it's paying the bills. So the more opportunities we have to, take swings, to have those at bats, the more home runs you hit, right? So that's what I'm excited about with the advent of the second brew yards. If we get, the ATB Exploratorium, as I want to call it, up and off the ground, we'll have more of yeah, exactly. Nobody take that. We'll have more at bats, right? And so it's all exciting. It's all gravy from here.
Really a lot of exciting stuff going down in Chicago, especially with Around the Bend and obviously your concept with district brew yards. And we're looking forward to following up in a couple months. And after Wheeling's open, after Labor Day, maybe we'll touch base in Q4, Q1 of next year and kind of circle back and see where things have stood so far and which of the expansions and all kinds of things. We really appreciate your time today and your story. It's a very unique story and one that seems like has been building itself to the moment that you're sitting in right now, for sure.
We may have to do an on-site follow-up to the podcast.
I like that idea.
At Brew Yards one of these days. Yeah, exactly.
I will never turn that down. So we can do it. We can do a hot dog tasting too while we're in there. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Oh, don't! I want a hot beef. I want a Chicago hot beef too.
I was gonna just say that. One of the things during my quarantine, I ended up binging the Bear on FX, which is
so good.
Yeah, it was. If you haven't seen it yet, Dan, it takes place, I guess, in Chicago at one of those beef shops there.
Can't beat them, man. Can't beat them. Best one in town is right up here by me, Johnny's in Elmwood Park on North Avenue.
Excellent. Well, that sounds like a date for sure, man. Well, perfect.
All right.
Hey, excellent. Hey, thanks again, Dan. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys, for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.
Cheers.